Hi, Year 3 and 4. We're starting a new unit in RE this week. It's a Christianity unit, and our key question is, why do Christians believe they are people on a mission? Our LO for this week is to understand what is meant by the word mission for Christians. What do you think of when you hear the word mission? Maybe you think of a film or story which has a secret mission in it, something the character has to do, to achieve. A mission is something you're sent to do, a special job, something really important. We're going to look at a Bible story today about a man who was sent on a mission. His name was Jonah.
Hi there, and welcome back to Bible Quest. Have you ever been asked to do something you didn't want to do? Like maybe being made to wear certain clothes to a family party, or eating your vegetables? Sometimes we have to do things that we don't want to, because it's actually good for us, and helps other people. In the Bible, there's a story about one of God's prophets, Jonah, who was asked to do something that he didn't want to do. He was given a message to share by God to the people of the great city of Nineveh, but rather than doing what he was asked to, he ran away. Nineveh was a huge city of about 120,000 people, probably the largest in the world at that time in history, and it was in a country that we now know as Iraq. Its king was cruel, and its people were violent and nasty. So you can perhaps see why Jonah was a little bit nervous about going to them and giving them the message from God. Let's see what happens.
There was a man called Jonah who God spoke to. He gave him this message: "Go to the great city of Nineveh and tell them that I know all about the bad things that they're doing." But Jonah didn't want to go and give the message to Nineveh because he was scared that the people of Nineveh would be angry with him and would try to hurt him. So he ran away. He bought a ticket and got on a sailing boat to try and get away from God. The boat set off on its journey, but God caused a great storm to arise, and the boat was tossed around like a toy in a bath. The people on board thought that the boat would break up, and they did everything they could to save it. They even threw out the cargo to lighten the ship's load. Jonah slept through it all. The captain came looking for him and asked, "How can you sleep? You need to get up and start praying that the boat won't sink." The sailors on the ship wondered why the storm was happening. "There has to be a reason for all this," they said. So they made everybody on board draw straws, and Jonah drew the short straw. Everyone knew that somehow this storm was all his fault, and that unless they did something about it, they would all die. Jonah owned up. He told them that he had been given a message from God to share with Nineveh, but he'd been scared and ran away. But he knew that there was nowhere he could run to that would take him away from God. "The best thing you can do," he said, "is throw me overboard. That way God will calm the sea and your lives will be spared." Naturally, the men felt really bad. They didn't want to throw him overboard, but they knew they had to in order to save the lives of everybody else on the ship. So they threw him overboard, and they asked God for forgiveness for doing such a terrible thing. And then all went quiet. Jonah was all alone. But then a big fish came along and swallowed him whole. In the darkness in the fish's stomach, he realised he was alive. He realised God sent the fish to save him. He realised that he'd gone very wrong in disobeying God. So he prayed and told God how sorry he was, and how he was now ready to do anything God asked him to do. After 3 days, God commanded the fish to spit Jonah out onto dry land. Then God asked Jonah again to go and take a message to the people of Nineveh. Jonah obeyed and walked to the city. He was still scared, but he knew that God was with him. So when he arrived, he started speaking God's message. In 40 days, Nineveh will be destroyed because of all the bad things that people are doing against each other and against God. And everyone that heard the message, even the king of Nineveh, took it seriously. The king was really sorry for all the bad things the people had been doing and said, "We need to stop doing bad things and say sorry to God. Maybe God will hear our prayers and be kind to us, seeing that we've changed. Maybe he won't destroy us." God saw everything. He saw how sorry Nineveh was for the bad things they'd been doing, and he showed kindness. He took pity on them and spared the city that now wanted to live the way God intended.
Even though Jonah didn't want to tell the people of Nineveh God's message, he did it anyway, but not without trying to run away first. How do you think that Jonah felt when God gave him that message to share? How do you think that he felt after he'd shared the message with the people and they had changed? From this story, what word would you use to describe Jonah, and what word would you use to describe God? Christians believe that God is fair, and although the people of Nineveh deserved to be punished for the bad things they were doing, God gave them a chance to change and follow him. It shows that God gives us all second chances. He gave Jonah a second chance to do as he had told him to, and the people of Nineveh a second chance to live good lives. How would you feel if God asked you to do something? Would you do it, or would you run away? That's it for now. Join us next time for another Bible Quest adventure. Bye!
So here's some questions for you to answer from that story. What was Jonah's mission? Who sent Jonah on the mission? What was the message Jonah had to give? What message did God have for Jonah? What questions would you ask Jonah, or God, or the Ninevites? If you're stuck on any of those questions, go back and watch the story again and see if you can answer them. Let's remind ourselves of what the learning objective is this week. It is to understand what is meant by the word mission for Christians. And we've just seen the story of Jonah, which had a mission in it. So your tasks this week, number 1, is to write a short paragraph to explain what the word mission means. You can use the story of Jonah as an example. For number 2, there are many books of the story of Jonah, telling the story of how he was swallowed by the big fish. But could you design a new book cover to show how Jonah was given a mission by God? You might choose a different title, such as Jonah's Mission, and include pictures of where he was going or how God told him what he was to do. You can include the big fish too, but make sure you also show what Jonah's mission was.